that we are all able to gather today on the shared traditional unceded territories of the Squamish Nation and the Lil'wat Nation. We're very lucky to live, work, play, and learn on these territories. From the names that I recognize, I think everyone's in the Sea to Sky, but if you happen to be joining us from elsewhere, we'd love to know. You're welcome to type in the chat where you're joining us from if you're not in Squamish, Whistler, or Pemberton, because I'm very curious. Oh, Annette is just responding to me. No problem. No problem. A few little housekeeping bits and pieces before I pass you along to Nate. And most of you have heard these already because I've been repeating them a few times. Oh, interesting. Deb is in Nanaimo. Hello. Welcome. Welcome. Welcome from Nanaimo. So if you've never used this webinar version of Zoom before, it's actually even easier for you folks because you don't have to worry about being muted or turning your video on and off. Those are automatically off. And that's just a step that we're taking to give you folks a little bit more privacy in these sessions because we are recording this session and we'll be able to send out the link to everybody who's attended, and we can also share the link on the library's YouTube channel. And so that means you don't have to worry about frantically taking notes today because there will be a recording that you'll receive. But of course, even though we can't see you and we can't hear you, we would still love to interact with you. And so you can ask questions either using the Q&A function or the chat function, whichever you're most comfortable with. I will be looking at both of those. So you're welcome to use either. If you would like to send a private message, you could use the chat and send it just to me. And I will not mention your name when I ask your question to Nate. So you're welcome to ask a private question that way. And of course, Nate is going to share his email address at the end of his presentation, so you will be able to contact him directly if you want to discuss something a little bit more sensitive. And of course, I should say what we're all here for today, shouldn't I? So this is our second Lunch and Learn session, and it's a new partnership between Whistler Public Library and MAC, Whistler's Mature Action Community. I'm really delighted to be partnering with MAC for this series. And of course, you can see on your screen that we have Corporal Nathan Miller here, and Nate will do a little intro of himself, but I just want to say thank you, Nate, for being here with us. I think this is a really interesting subject, especially given that we're all spending so much time online these days. The perils of being online are seeming, I don't know, even scarier these days, perhaps. But I believe through your presentation, you will arm us with some tools so that we don't have to be quite so intimidated by by the virtual realm. So that's enough from me. I'm going to stop talking and I am going to pass you over to Nate. Hi, Nate.
Hello. Thanks, everyone, for taking the time out of your day to listen to this. So yeah, so I'm just going to talk to you guys about some frauds that are out there, some prevention strategies, and some information resources of where to go for further information and websites and that kind of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a PowerPoint presentation with everyone. So just bear with me for 1 sec. All right, how does that look? Good? Okay. So as you get, so I'm Nate, or Corporal Miller. So my role in this community is I'm essentially on the community engagement unit. So my job would entail reaching out to groups or associations like yourself and yeah, just providing information like we're going to today, like with fraud. So moving on. So these are the topics we're going to discuss today. So statistics on fraud, just to show you guys how much money is being fraudulently obtained in Canada. It's obviously in the millions. The top schemes targeting Canadians today. Some of the fraud trends that I'm seeing in Whistler, and we'll go over some prevention and awareness strategies. and what to do if you're the unfortunate victim of a fraud, and how to report possible frauds to us or the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. So as you can see, some of the losses that we deal with, so just important to note, these are probably stats from, up until 2017. So obviously the numbers are going to be higher, but this is all I could obtain for you guys at this point. So it's well over 400 million from 2013 to 2017. A couple of important things to remember is obviously these scammers, they can bombard you guys online, through mail. It can happen door to door, telephone scams. We'll talk about all those different platforms that they use today. Obviously, they don't discriminate on age, gender, or anything like that, right? All they care about is defrauding you of your money. So one of the best ways to combat this kind of fraud is obviously take measures to prevent yourself from getting caught up in the first place, and we'll go over what those methods are. It's interesting that only 5% of the reports are actually reported to us, because obviously it could be embarrassing. People might feel like they're taken advantage of, and they might be embarrassed to actually report that to someone, right? So it's very underreported, this crime. So the numbers would are obviously going to be substantially higher than the numbers we're talking about today. And fraud has huge impacts on everyone involved, right? So financial loss is the first one. Like I just talked about, embarrassment. The emotional toll that it would take on someone is huge. And in the worst cases, of course, would be someone taking their own life over a fraud or an extortion that we'll kind of talk about today. So some of the fraud schemes, is a lot here. This is 30 different schemes that the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center has kind of flagged. We're not going to go through all these today. I've just kind of I'll highlight a couple. Some new ones that we're seeing around lately would be, well, this one isn't new, but the CRA scam, like where they'll call you asking for that you owe on taxes. Obviously, that's pertinent given this time of year, and we'll go into a little bit more depth in that one later. There's wire fraud scams, CEO scams, some of the ones here like pyramid schemes. Romance scams is actually is quite high now as well, and that usually gets related to extortion. And we're going to talk about some preventative methods of how to deal with that. So take a look at that list, and then if I do not go into depth in a couple of these, we could always follow up with that later, just with the time that we have today. So some of the top scams for loss of money are going to be wire fraud, but romances, that's an important one to look at, right? So that's over 19 million. And, given this time of this kind of situation we're in with COVID, people are obviously lonely, we're isolated. So that's a really important one to be aware of, is online dating scams and that kind of thing right now. Obviously, we're going to probably see those numbers go way up when we look at more recent stats. This slide here, bear with me here, I'm just having a little technical difficulty. What's important to note on this one is we're going to go through this called phishing, and that's used to essentially, they're going to use any kind of avenue to obtain personal information from you. And we all know that, well, we should know that you don't give out any personal information over the phone unless you can confirm it's a reputable company like the bank and that kind of thing. One sec here. But the reason why we're obviously talking to the MAC group today is, if you look at this chart, age range, unfortunately, your demographic is hit the hardest, right? So if we look at 50-year-olds all the way up until 79-year-olds, that is the highest number of age population that's victimized by fraud, right? So it's really important to get some education out to your demographic, so this obviously doesn't continue. So the CRA scam. So obviously this time of year, I'm not sure if you guys have been contacted by this. I know I have, and all my family members have. So what happens is they might contact you by, it's usually by phone or sometimes by email or text, and they'll claim to be a CRA representative or immigration official, and they'll be asking to collect. They'll say that your taxes are overdue or you have fees due, and they're really aggressive the way they come across it and talk to you over the phone. And it can be quite overwhelming sometimes for people. Like I know some family members have dealt with this and have called me right away because it's just really intimidating, and obviously they make it sound really urgent and that you have to act right away, you know, or not to get in trouble, right? Like no one wants to get in trouble. So we usually, human nature is to do what we can to make sure that we're not going to be in trouble. So these guys take advantage of it that way. A new thing that they've started to do with this CRA scam is they'll threaten to arrest, deport if they're calling from the immigration, claim to be the immigration section. And what's happening now is we've had a lot of people that unfortunately have been victims of this fraud, and so those people have lost money, unfortunately. And what they'll do now is they'll follow up with those victims and they'll agree that they will help you to recoup some of your losses if you pay a 5% administrative fee. So obviously at that point, unfortunately, the victim will be might be quite desperate and want to get their money back, because it could be a substantial amount of money, and they might get sucked into providing more money in the hopes of getting some of their losses back, which obviously won't happen. You'll just be defrauded even more money. So best to be aware of that. Obviously, any of these calls or these situations that I'm discussing today, if you have any doubts, you just ask for callback number, and then you can reach out to the RCMP, you can reach out to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, all that kind of stuff, right? So time is on your side. Don't rush into any of these scenarios and to give out any personal information, that kind of thing. So you're in control of it. You just slow things down and really think, hey, why are they asking for this information? And the age range for, like I said, it doesn't discriminate. Age range for CRA scams, the Canadian Revenue Agency scams, they range from 20-year-old to 90-year-old. So obviously we're all paying taxes. So that's why that's such a wide age limit on that. All right, so I went through some of our files in Whistler. So this is the themes that I've seen locally. False property rental ads. You guys live here, but there is someone from the NIMO here. So obviously it might not apply to you, but it could apply to you if you're going to book a timeshare, not a timeshare, but like a nightly rental somewhere else, right? So be really cautious when you travel. A lot of these, what will happen is there'll be fake like Craigslist ads. That might be ask for a monthly rental or that kind of thing, and they'll ask for the first month's deposit. And usually what happens is the unfortunate victims will show up to these vacation rentals, knock on the door and realize that there's someone already occupying the residence. So what will happen is these people will kind of piggyback on like Airbnb ads or other ads that are out there, use those photos, make a duplicate rental ad, and then obviously the money is wired and never to be seen again. So that's one that we see a lot of in our town. I just talked about the Canadian Revenue Agency. Another one that we get a lot with, and I hear our front staff getting calls for service for this daily, is the Service Canada. I'll get into this one a little bit more later. So what they'll obviously call you and say, hey, we see that you have multiple bank accounts open, and they'll start this conversation with you, and they'll slowly keep trying to confirm, like, oh, do you have a bank account in RBC? And then they'll slowly start getting personal information from you. And obviously, usually their end goal would be to get your social insurance number, and then with that, they can obviously apply for countless amount of things, and that's called kind of that phishing that we're gonna dive into a little bit more. So best way with anyone wanting bank account information and that kind of thing, you don't give it out. Like, banks don't usually cold call and start asking for all this information. Usually you'd have to call the bank, and then they ask you security questions, right? And that's how we kind of protect ourselves from giving private information over the phone. Another one, I'll show you a little video in a couple minutes, is called the Grandparent Scam. And they will call pretending that they're in trouble. They'll come up with a story and essentially ask you to wire them money. And we'll show a video to go over that. I'm not sure if most people are familiar with Bitcoin these days, but that's increasing, and we do have a Bitcoin machine in the Alpenglow in town. So a lot of these scammers now will ask for Bitcoin transactions. So I do have notices up on the Bitcoin machine, because that is extremely difficult for us to investigate. At least if we're investigating frauds that involve bank accounts, there's some kind of tracking system. But if you take cash out and deposit it into a Bitcoin machine, you're given a number on the blockchain, and as soon as you deposit your cash, it's gone, and there's no way we're going to be able to get it back for you. So anything to do with Bitcoin, and also anything to do with gift cards. No established company asks for payments in iTunes cards or any kind of gift cards, and we get that a lot. That if someone falls victim to a scam that's requesting payment, a lot of the time they will ask that person to go to the local store and buy like $5,000 or $10,000 worth of these iTunes cards or Google Play cards, anything like that. And then what happens is you scratch the number. So you've paid your money, and then you scratch the number off the back, and you provide them with that number. And yet again, your money's gone. And you just have to stop and think, like, what kind of establishment would request you to pay in gift cards, right? Like, it's not a common practice. So be very wary of that. Dating scams, we'll go over that as well. Obviously be aware of anyone that you're talking to on a dating app or website. Why would they be asking for money? So with dating scams, one thing to be aware of would be the website itself. There are obviously lots of reputable companies out there, and especially this time in our society, it was already kind of going to online dating more and more, but obviously even more so now with COVID, the pandemic. Everyone's kind of maybe getting more lonely and trying to reach out to people. So be very wary of this right now. So what will happen is some web pages or websites, I should say, they'll originally kind of ask you to set up some some kind of profile. There's a lot of free ones out there, but some will ask you to pay for the initial whatever services they provide. Maybe they'll match you up with someone or that kind of thing. But what will happen after is sometimes for some of these web pages, they'll ask each message that you send, there'll be a charge with that. And one second here. So what they'll do is they'll kind of duplicate this website and then obtain your personal information from there. And there'll be like ploys of, let's say you're starting to talk to someone and obviously they're showing a great deal of interest in you. All of a sudden they might make strange kind of requests like they want to come to Whistler to visit you, but they need some money transferred to them to help with transportation or visa or that kind of thing, or they have a sick relative that they need help with, and it could start off quite innocently, like let's say you've been talking with someone and they send flowers to your door, right? So you think the relationship developing somewhere, but usually these relationships develop extremely fast, and someone's claiming to have profound love for you within like a couple weeks, and then they'll send these small gestures to you, and then in return they'll ask for like cash to help them come and visit you, and these happen a lot. So unfortunately, if you fall victim to this, you would send, it's not a crazy amount. Sometimes it could be a couple $100 to help them with a bus ticket or plane ticket to come here, and then obviously you never see them, right? So that's something to watch out for, especially during the current times right now. So a couple like just reminders here. So check the website address carefully. Like I said before, they often set up fake websites that are similar to legitimate ones. You can usually see those like in the headers of the addresses of the email addresses, that kind of thing. They'll be slightly off. Like we talked about, never send money or give credit card information online to anyone that you do not know or trust. And obviously think cautiously about giving out any personal information in email when you're chatting, because obviously you don't know who you're chatting with, right? Like you have no idea who that person is on the other side of that computer. And if you want to use a website, obviously make sure it's a reputable one and do a little bit of research. There's lots out there, so it's easy to figure out which ones are the good ones, and you can read reviews. And then this is an important question. Ask yourself, would someone I have never met really declare their love for me after a few letters or emails? I know some family members of my own have just get random requests through Facebook of, oh, so-and-so wants to meet you. Well, think about it. Like, why? Like, how do they even know who you are? Why would they all of a sudden want to start meeting you and engaging in conversations, right? So, yeah. So we're going to move on to some telemarketing scams. I got a short video for you here. Bear with me, these videos are not the most up to date, but they make a point. So here we go.
Your target, the seniors, your weapon, the phone, your objective, their bank accounts.
Easy, as long as you got a new MO ready to go.
Yeah, like when I'm talking to the active seniors. Sometimes I'm a tennis pro, sometimes a golf pro.
What about when they say they're on the do not call list?
Just tell them, we're the good telemarketers. We're calling to see if the do not call list is working. Hello?
Hey, seniors have had their identity long enough.
McGruff, the crime dog here. It's hang-up time, folks. With my booklet, seniors will know what to say to make you crooks go away. Look.
I want what? Mail me the information. Well, if you can't mail me the information, then I can't talk to you.
at my free brochure and learn what to say to make unscrupulous telemarketers go away.
You're not being rude.
You're being shrewd. Yeah.
So I always talk to my coworkers about McGruff the crime dog, and they don't know who I'm talking about, but hopefully you guys do, because everyone's too young who I work with to remember him. So it's important, right? Because obviously she talks about the mature action community, like you guys are active, like tennis coaches, that kind of stuff. So something to be aware of. And like the woman at the very end there, like she asked for information to be mailed to her, right? So she's taking control of the situation. She's not providing information right away. And that's the kind of angle that these telemarketers will always try to get. And obviously they're going to be very smooth at what they do because they're fraudsters, right? So just slow things down. We're going to move on now to, got a lot of topics here, so we can always touch base on specific ones as we go. I'm going to skip this one for now. We're going to get into the phishing slides. This kind of incorporates a lot of it. So the terminology is, what this means is it comes from internet scammers. So they use emails, like lures, like they're phishing for passwords and financial data from you guys. So what they can also do is kind of called brand spoofing. So they'll create these email messages or web pages that replicate legitimate sites or businesses, and they'll trick users to provide personal financial information or password. So you'll give your credit cards or bank account information, or even worse, social insurance number, over these emails that you receive that essentially are clones of reputable companies. For example, I keep getting one for Netflix saying that unless I update my account's overdue, and unless I immediately provide more money, my internet or my Netflix is going to be canceled. Well, I got that last year, and I know that I automatically pay my Netflix account on my Visa. So, when I looked at the header of it, you can tell that it looks really fishy. Like there's a lot of the address in the email. It doesn't look like Netflix. I don't have an example for it now. I should have probably made one of those, but if you ever get an email like that, that they're asking that they're gonna, unless you pay them, they're gonna cancel your services, just really take a look at the line, and then, like we talk about, call them or ask them to mail you information, right? Like, do not provide any information to that email. So you'll watch for spelling mistakes or formatting errors. And once you look at the email closely, you'll see what I mean. And check for embedded like hyperlinks in the suspicious email. And you can do that by hovering over with a mouse. The link will verify the address. So that's a really important one. So if it's Netflix, it will literally come up with Netflix, or if another one, it might come up with some obscure hyperlink. So don't click on any attachments. They might contain like a virus or software or spyware, I mean. And if any solicited email includes a hyperlink, don't click on the hyperlink if you think it's suspicious. Another thing, obviously, today, well, a lot of us buy a lot of things online, but especially more now with the pandemic, right? But be cautious of when you're purchasing online. If obviously the price is too good to be true, most likely it is. Look for reviews and feedback on the seller. That's really important. Reputable companies will have a good good review history, and then you can also look at their review because it might have customers that have maybe complained or asked questions, and then there'll be responses from that company. So really important to look at the company's reviews before you purchase anything. And then when buying products, you could also obviously maybe fall into a trap of counterfeit products. So that would go into the category of it. If it is, the price is too good to be true, most likely it is. So how to protect yourself against this would be, if you're trying to buy a product online, is never make a deal outside of the like the auction site or Amazon Prime or anything like that. Always stay within that platform. So inspect the website thoroughly. Like we talked about with phishing, what they would do is the counterfeit websites will have spelling errors and grammatical errors and that kind of thing. And yeah, be aware of no feedback or limited feedback from sellers. That's definitely that's definitely a warning sign that you want to be aware of. And also, when you might not be buying merchandise, you might be selling merchandise, right? So it's also, you can also become a victim of fraud when you're trying to sell something. For example, I think I've come across this when I've tried to sell a vehicle or even a mountain bike sometimes, and all of a sudden you'll get these offers and it's several $1,000s more than you were selling your merchandise for, right? Obviously that's going to be a huge flag. And you want to be very cautious before providing any personal information. What can happen with this is they might be like, oh, hey, I saw your ad, I'm really interested. And they'll offer to make a payment by PayPal, and they'll offer to pay you extra to ship the product. And then, so if you're a victim, you might agree to receive a payment through PayPal, and then it comes back as the funds not available, right? But at that point, you might have already released your or packaged and shipped out your merchandise, and unfortunately that PayPal account was never an official one, and so you've paid for shipping and you've essentially packaged up your merchandise and shipped it off to someone who you don't know, and you're never going to see your money again. So that one is which could happen to any guys with sporting equipment, that kind of thing. So be very wary of that. So some warning signs with this and how to protect yourself would be authenticate payments before shipping any goods, right? So have that good dialogue with the purchaser. And sometimes the scammers might use the terminology of item opposed to the specific object that you're selling. So that would be a little flag to be wary of. And another one would be like they might change the shipping address at the last minute. That's another sign. And like we discussed, them willing to pay overpayments for the merchandise or the shipping itself. This one I'll breeze through really quickly because we're running out of time. I want to make sure you guys can answer some questions. This one is just obviously service scams, where it used to happen more in the past. They can still happen. Would be someone's calling up from a computer company saying that you might have viruses or that kind of thing on your computer, and they would either ask for payments to fix it, or even worse, they would ask for remote access to your device. And if you do that, at that point, obviously they have access to anything on your computer. If you do online banking, passwords, that kind of thing, you've essentially offered them all your information, and they will be able to obtain it really quick. So anyone calling you offering service for any kind of computer services, be very, very suspicious of, okay? And yet again, don't provide any personal information on these calls. We're gonna go to prize money. Of course, we all want to win the lottery. But if all of a sudden someone claims and say, "Hey, you've won Publishing Clearing or Reader's Digest or anything like that," obviously be wary of that. What they would do is they'll often say that there is a small, in order to claim your prize money, you'd have to provide a small advance fee to cover the taxes or the legal fees to win. And obviously, and that's the way they kind of get you. It could be only a couple $100. And you're like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll pay a couple $100 and I'll get my obviously huge prize, but you'll obviously never see that money again. And for these scammers, it works really well because a couple $100 for a couple hundred or thousand people, right? Like they're definitely going to win. And it's very advantageous for them because you might not think you're going to be scammed. Like, oh, it's only a couple $100, but you multiply that by a lot of people, and obviously it ends up being a lot of money. Personal information. Obviously, this is just kind of a preventative thing. Obviously, whenever you're getting rid of mail, all your documents, that kind of thing, best practice would be to shred your information. A lot of criminals, fraudulent criminals, what they do. So I'm kind of changing gears here a little bit. So there's this fraud like telemarketers, people approaching on the internet through email or by phone. And then there's obviously fraudsters who will go out and physically try to obtain your personal information through your garbage or your car, for example. And if you leave, let's say, as simple as your banking information in your insurance papers that in your glove box, right? ICBC always tells you to not keep that one copy with your bank information. And disposing of your banking information and private information correctly is a good preventative way of ensuring that you're not going to be a victim of fraud. Because as soon as they obtain a couple pieces of information, they'll essentially be able to create a false identity, right? And then through that, they will apply for multiple credit cards, and before fraudulent activity can even be detected, they've already racked up thousands of dollars on the credit cards. Luckily, the credit cards have insurance, right? But then if you're the victim of this, it really affects you if you were to go get a loan or a credit card yourself, because now under your name you're flagged, and it just makes the whole process a lot harder for you. So physically be aware of how you're getting rid of your personal information. So one scam, I talked about this briefly at the beginning. One scam is the grandparent scam, and then they'll call you kind of frantically pretending to be your grandson or granddaughter. And this is what it will look like.
Hello?
Grandma? I'm in trouble and I need your help.
Sarah, is that you?
Yes, Grandma, it's me, Sarah. I'm in a lot of trouble. I crashed my car and I don't have any insurance.
Oh, no.
I'm at the auto body shop with the guy I hit and the mechanic. Please don't tell Mom and Dad. The guy I hit insisting that I pay for the damages to his car right now or he's going to call the police. Oh my God. I need $2,700 to pay for the mechanic right now or they're going to have me arrested. Oh my God, I'm in so much trouble. Can you please help me, Grandma? Please?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, sweetheart, what can I do?
He needs money up front or he won't start the work. I'm in so much trouble. Can you please help me? Lend me the money? I'll pay you back as soon as I can. Please don't tell Mom and Dad.
Just tell me. I'll go to the bank and tell me where I should send the money.
The mechanic guy says you just have to go to a money transfer place and wire the money to him directly. I don't have all the details, but I can put him on the phone to talk to you.
Yes. Just tell me what to do.
Thanks so much, Grandma. I love you.
Okay, I need you to go to the nearest money transfer place and wire the money to my business account.
So it's a numbers game for these guys, right? So if, they'll call multiple people, and all of a sudden they might call the right person who has a granddaughter or grandson, and something like that can be quite convincing. And yet again, they're not asking for a crazy amount of money. So what they're asking for sounds somewhat believable, right? So be very cautious of that kind of thing. Obviously, they're trying to create panic in the moment, and you just try your best to try to slow down the situation and kind of ask those key questions to yourself. So prevention and awareness. So obviously you got to protect your identity. Treat your personal details like you would treat them, like you would treat money. Don't leave them laying around for others to take. Only give your personal details and information where it's absolutely necessary, and when you trust the person that you're speaking with or dealing with. I talk about destroying all your personal information before you throw it out. Like, shred it is the best way to do it. Your old bills, statements, your old credit cards or bank cards. Also too, during these times, I know I do a lot of my online banking on my phone, and you can tap your phone to pay for coffees, all that kind of stuff. So obviously make sure you have security passwords on your phone, so that if you were to lose your phone, and you have these features, people can't just go around essentially using like a credit card, like a tap and pay. Never send money to anyone that you don't know or trust. Don't send any money or pay any fee to claim a prize, like we talked about. And if you're acquiring for a job, don't provide anyone money for a service that you haven't actually even obtained yet. And the face-to-face approach is the best. If someone comes to your door, ask for ID, take time to find out about their business and their offer. You don't have to let them in, and you don't leave. You don't have to let them in. And if you ask them to leave, then they will. And obviously, if you have any issues with that, you can call the police right away. We don't get many calls of door-to-door interactions in this town, but I know in other communities that I did work in, this would be quite common. And then when you're ever worry about different businesses, obviously you can call us or call the Better Business Bureau, right? They're a wealth of information. Any telephone businesses that you receive a call from, obviously be aware of telemarketing scams. You could always verify who they are by calling the company yourself. Usually these scammers, when you call back on the number, they'll use internet numbers, like they're called VoIP numbers. So you actually won't be able to call back someone. So obviously that would be a huge indicator that this company doesn't exist. So always try to obtain a phone number and call them back when it's convenient for you. And obviously these can be reported to the Better Business Bureau as well. Check their webpage. If they're claiming their business, they should have a valid webpage. And obviously, like I've kind of reintegrate again, don't give any credit card, personal information, anything like that until you're sure that you've confirmed the legitimacy of this business. And the same goes with email offers and people phishing for your personal information. We're going to wrap up really quick here because I want to give you guys some time for questions. Be aware of recovery scams, right? If you're a victim, you could be a secondary victim by them claiming to say, hey, we can provide your money back with a small administrative fee. You're going to lose more money, so don't re-victimize yourself. Be proactive, call us, ask friends, ask family about businesses. If you have an inquiry that doesn't feel right, don't act on it and provide personal information. Just ask your friends, call the Better Business Bureau, report to the Canadian anti-fraud section, that kind of thing. Here is That's the Anti-Fraud Center email and phone number. And some resource. Oh, sorry, I am using the wrong screen here. Sorry, I had two laptops going and I've been, here we go. So there's the Anti-Fraud Center email address and phone number, but you can just Google it and find the address on that. So prevention is key for, like we've talked about. Legitimate businesses have nothing to hide, right? So by you asking them questions and calling back to verify, they shouldn't have a problem with that. They should be happy to provide you with that phone, with that information. So here are some resources for you guys if you have any questions. Better Business Bureau, British Columbia Crime Prevention. Our RCMP national webpage has a lot of good things as well. This is my email if you guys want to contact me directly. So I apologize I lost you guys for the last couple minutes there because I was working off a different screen. I'm going to open up to if anyone has any questions. I know that was a lot and I pretty much just skimmed over multiple things, but hopefully that was of interest to you guys.
Thank you, Nate. That was a lot of information, but I feel like I learned some great stuff in there too. And I want to go right back to the beginning of your talk and mention a comment that Peter has made here. He said that he's had several clients targeted who've refused to go to the police. And I think that goes back to what you were saying about being embarrassed, about being scammed. And so we've all just got to set the ego aside. Just it'll be better for you in the long run if you tell somebody about it, report it to the police, so forth. So thank you for that. We do have a question from Brandon in the comments here, and he says, "I know sometimes people can be tempted to pick up a call from a scammer if they recognize it in advance, even just to mess with them. Is it best not to pick up calls if they are thought to be a scam? So just don't answer at all." What do you think?
I've been tempted to do that myself as well, because and you hear it all the time. You can hear it in the Lyft lineups. People are hanging on to these phone calls and having fun with it. That's a personal choice. They're not going to get any more information from you. They're going to move on. It's all like a random number how you're called anyways. So I guess you'll be giving them a little bit taste of their own medicine and wasting their time, right? So if you want to do that, then it's not going to. It won't harm you any for sure. So
good to know. There are whole YouTube channels devoted to that very.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, it's a real black hole you can fall down on the internet. Kathy has posted a reminder saying, just to clarify, Canada Revenue Agency does not phone. They will write letters or write emails, or is that correct? And how do we verify that their letters are legitimate?
Yeah, I don't think I remember getting a letter, but I'm sure you're right, Kathy. Emails are, I just got one the other day actually, and then I was concerned because they were saying there was a possible hack in the Canadian Revenue Agency, right? I'm not sure if you guys heard that. They're claiming there wasn't, but so just be aware of that right now with your emails. But going back to the question, how to clarify that, I would look at the, to clarify the email, I would look at the actual text itself and like spelling mistakes, all that kind of thing. Because once you start looking at the information lines, like it's quite pronounced that it isn't official. The letters, I would just open the letter and I would call that number, or I would kind of cross match it to Google the CRA actual number online, and maybe it's a different number too, right? So you don't want to fall into that trap of maybe this looks legitimate, and now you call and you think, oh yeah, that number is right, and then you start giving out personal information. So kind of cross-reference it a couple times before that. Oh, there's a visitor.
Sorry about that. I believe if you've signed up with the CRA for paperless service, then you should not get any paper mail anymore, and everything should come via
Okay, that makes
email.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think because that service is relatively new, like maybe over the last 5 years, there are probably lots of people who are still transitioning to paperless. We have a question from Peter asking how successful are law enforcement agencies in actually catching these bad actors, so to speak.
So the thing is, what's so difficult with these is I was kind of referred to these VoIP numbers. So for an offense, if the offense occurs in first of all, the offense has to occur in Canada. And then it gives us a lot better chances of investigating. A lot of times what will happen is these VoIP numbers, they will be through the internet, and it's hard for us and sometimes impossible for us to even track down where that call originated from. And that's the first thing we have to do when we're investigating something is where did the offense actually occur? So to answer your question, they're extremely difficult. They're extremely time consuming. And I don't have stats on it, but usually you're not going to get your money back with big fraud investigations like this, because it's so hard to pinpoint them. They'll be like their IP addresses will be bouncing off different servers, so we can't even locate where they're from. So we're essentially chasing a ghost a lot of the time. With simple kind of common frauds, it's way more easier, right? If someone was to write a fraudulent check, we go into the bank, we obtain video footage, we physically see them depositing a check. Those we have great success with. But stuff involved in the internet is definitely way more complex and way more time consuming.
We have a very good point here. Somebody has pointed out that scammers can now display numbers that look legitimate. So for example, you might get a scam call from what looks like a local Whistler number. Are you seeing that more and more, Nate, or is it usually a more random number that it's coming from?
No, you're right. Yeah, because before people wouldn't pick up the phone, right, including me. But now you pick it up and it's like a regular number. So they are doing that now. So obviously they're getting ahead of the curve a little bit. I haven't heard of a recent investigation where we've had a victim and that a number like that has been used, but it's going to be tied back to the same kind of internet number that you could buy. You could buy a number from a provider, and that provider essentially has bought that number from a different provider, and it just kind of keeps spiraling down that hole.
I missed a comment from Peter who, following up on the point about maybe being embarrassed to report, he says perhaps the victims might be reluctant to give evidence and be a witness in criminal proceedings so that they can remain anonymous. So maybe that plays into it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a whole different, the first obviously hurdle is if you're embarrassed to actually come forward and talk to us. And then if you are wanting to remain anonymous, we can talk through that at the very beginning. There is obviously things like Crime Stoppers that you would be anonymous to begin with, and we can work through that. Obviously, it's not a victimless crime, so to have testimony from that person would be the best case. And if after a consultation you wanted to proceed with that, if the evidence was there, we always have like victim services, and they actually, a big part of their job is to walk you through that court process, because it is intimidating, it's a big deal to go through, but you're not left on your own to go through that. Like there's someone with you the whole way if it ever got to that point. So don't let that discourage you. We can work around that for sure.
Kathy commented that she gets emails or even text messages that look almost legitimate. They look like banking communication, saying that there's money in an old account. and they're asking for somebody to mail a $100 check processing fee to get that money sent. Wow, that's a doozy, Kathy. Have you seen that one, Nate?
So, and kind of opposite of that, I got a letter from the mail from a bank saying that I had a account that hasn't been used for a long time, and I was actually going to get charged from them if I didn't close it. So, and that was legit. I called them and asked them about that, but yeah, there's never going to be anything. Do not fall prey to that kind of thing for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a reputable bank, you just call them, and then they're gonna verify that, or just go into the bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they can confirm or deny that right away.
Mm-hmm. We have a few minutes remaining, folks, and if you have to leave us right at 1 o'clock, you're welcome to do so. But we do have a few minutes left. Oh, my cat is back. Hopefully, will not do anything. And I'm wondering if Kathy, do you want to jump in, unmute yourself, and tell us about next month? And we can take. Oh, go on, Buster. And if we can let anybody else submit questions through the chat while Kathy tells us about next month. How does that sound? Oh, where has Kathy gone? Oh no. I don't see her anymore. I hope Buster didn't boot her out of the meeting.
I don't see her either. Yeah.
Oh no. Oh dear. Peter has his hand up, and Peter is one of our speakers next month. So, hi Peter. Can you say something? See if we can hear you.
Of course. Hi
Peter. Yes.
So Kathy would probably wanted to talk about what the topic was.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be Diana Sillery, who's with Sun Life Ashlew Investments, is a financial consultant for a long time, who will be joining me, Peter Shrimpton, Mountain Law Corporation, lawyer over 30 years, in telling everybody about estate planning. What is it? Why is it needed? How do you plan? Using wills, incapacity planning documents such as powers of attorney and representation agreements, using life insurance, might get into trusts if we've got enough time. Really the process of arranging for that transition, that orderly transfer of your assets, your belongings, your investments to people you want to receive, making sure that that they get it in an appropriate way at an appropriate time, and at the same time minimizing taxes. So there you go.
Great. And Diana, do you want to add anything to that?
I do. Thanks, Peter. Hi, everybody. This is Diana Sillery. I will be with Peter for next session. And basically, the way I put it is you want to leave a clean house. So it's leaving a clean legacy for on your passing. So all the pieces that encompasses, as Peter has laid out.
Wonderful. And we do have Kathy back. Hi, Kathy. I'm not sure where you went.
That was so funny. I went into the ozone. I went into the Ethernet for a few minutes there. Thank you. Sorry, my system just crashed right at that time. Thank you, Diana, for speaking on behalf of next month's event on Thursday, March the 18th, noon till 1. And Peter Shrimpton, thank you for joining us during that time as well. And I think it's really important at this stage of COVID and life planning at any age. It's not just for 55 plus community with the Whistler Mature Action Community Group. It's of any age to make sure that we leave and not be taken advantage of in the future. When families are under stress, I've seen this myself in personal matters where my real estate clients are taken advantage of through a different type of, it's almost like elder abuse in that kind of area, or it's almost in the fact of not feeling confident to ask the right people for that help. And so Diana and Peter are going to outline some topics that help us sort of plan ahead and take proactive steps instead of waiting too long. And that's what we also see from my background in real estate is it ends up being a very sad case, where often realtors are asked to come in and help trying to straighten it out with the lawyers and estate planners when it could have been done so much earlier.
Well, thank you, Kathy. It sounds like that's going to be a great discussion, and especially since Nate said most of his colleagues don't know who McGruff the crime dog is. I am personally feeling older than my years, so I think I will need to keep an ear out for the estate planning as well. As you say, it's never too early to start that process. And we've got some other great topics coming up. We have sessions in March, April, and May, and we're delighted to be partnering with MAC. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Sherilyn. And I guess one last thank you to Nate for being here, for your presentation, and for the folks who are still here on the call, a reminder that I will be sending out the recording, so you can go through Nate's notes at your own pace and take down any info that you want to glean from those slides. And his email address will be in there as well, so if you want to reach out to him personally, you are welcome to do so. And Nate, any final thoughts?
Thanks for having me. And yeah, just take time and just do not give out personal information until you can confirm who you're speaking with. So.
Great.
Guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And hope to see everybody in a month's time for the session with Peter and Diana. Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.